Welcome to the session. I'm honored to be here, Dan Levitt, and we'll be spending the next half an hour together looking at the issue of how technology and innovation will impact on our own viewpoint of aging. So imagine everything that you knew about aging was wrong. What if we together reshaped and reimagined what it means to grow old? If we did that, if we embrace aging like an award, like something that we coveted, that each birthday was a celebration, we might be running up against a very steep hill, like Victoria Hill in Hong Kong. And you think about how steep that is and how much pressure there is to run up against a hill like that. Well, that's the kind of challenge that we're facing when we think about the ageism and reimagining what it means to grow old. I'm showing a picture here of Iris Apfel. She's 102 years of age. How would you celebrate your 100th birthday if you were Iris Apfel? Well, you would release a brand new line of clothing, as she did when she celebrated marking a century. She's a centenarian, and she's been doing this all her life, and nothing's going to stop her. So I want to encourage you to think about, to live life every day as if your life was going to be like Iris Apfel, as if you were going to live to be 120, because that is the lifespan, the human lifespan currently. So I want to talk about how we perceive aging. When you drive around countries like Scotland, as this picture shows, we have signs there saying elderly people. I thought that was great at first. And then I looked at the stick figures that are showing misrepresentation, a stereotype of how people perceive older adults. In this case, they're both hunched over. He's using a cane, and it looks like she's they're holding hands. Can't tell exactly what she's doing, but let's just go with they're holding hands. So from my point of view, this is a derogatory stereotype, discriminatory representation of older people. So imagine the exact same couple. What if we did a contest to say, let's find an age-positive viewpoint of that couple, which they did in the United Kingdom. Here's the winner. There you go. It's the same couple, but they're dancing and they're having a great time. The cane, the walking cane, now is a dancing cane. Their arms are in the air and they're having a great time. And she's connecting with him. Also, she's kind of kicking motion forward, as is he. That's the kind of thing we want to see. We want to see that transformation. And if you go on public transit or go anywhere and you see a senior being represented in this way, I encourage you, as I have done, to contact the person, the company who designed that, who stereotypes seniors that way, and tell them the right way to do it. I was just in Poland last week speaking at a large conference, a huge conference in one of the biggest conferences in Europe. And I showed them those last slides. And then I said, you guys got it right in Poland. You have dance parties where you close the streets off and you have seniors dancing. That's really the way it should be. And I've seen that in Asia when I've been in places like Hong Kong or Singapore or just about anywhere in Asia. I have seen seniors outdoor and they're doing their dancing, their line dancing, they're doing their exercises, their Tai Chi. And it's wonderful to see. We want to see seniors out there. And we want to see seniors being celebrated, as also they do in Poland, where they have a celebration, a parade just for older people. That's music to our ears. As a gerontologist, I love seniors who are being celebrated. Now, here's a big thing. When you go to the grocery store and you buy your groceries in Canada, I'm used to seeing all those fashion magazines at the checkout counter. Well, I might have a tough time identifying with a 20-year-old with a zero size waist. With those, I'm thinking of some Vogue magazine covers where we had some models there that really didn't look so healthy. And they started a trend on focusing, really putting pressure on young women. As a father of two teenage daughters, I'm very concerned about those kinds of images. So I'm grateful that in the Philippines, in April of this year, they put a 106, yes, a 106-year-old on the front cover of Vogue magazine Philippines. Her name is Apu Wang Od. And I'm proud of the Philippines Vogue magazine and proud of her for showing off her skin. Lots of skin in that picture. It's beautifully decorated in tattoos. And look at her face. Sure, she has lipstick on, but she's not hiding the wrinkles. She's showing off her age. Her hair, like mine, is gray. She's owning her age. I would encourage you to own your age. Now, if you were going to the store, the same store I mentioned earlier, and you were buying a banana, I'm going to give you a moment. I'm going to pause for a second. Write down on a piece of paper or make a note somewhere of what number of banana you would buy. I'm going to guess that most of you chose number 1 or number 2. In fact, if we rethink aging, we will buy number 4. Why would you buy number 4? Because you're going to use it for baking. You're going to make some delicious banana bread. I love banana bread. I don't eat it enough because the bananas never get old enough for banana bread. You know, that number 1 there, that's useless to make banana bread. You need a good old dated banana. That number 1's only good for eating. But if you want to cook and bake, you need number 4. So rethink food. Now, I want to talk about quality in long-term care, or quality for an older person. Imagine that you lived where I work, KinVillage. We have 100 people who live in our care home. We have 300 people living all together here and lots of people in the community we serve. But imagine that you lived here and every day for breakfast, you have toast. I know in Hong Kong, we like our toast there too. But imagine that all the toast was made maybe like number 5. And imagine I buttered it for you with margarine, and I put a big chunk of, big scoop of jam on top of it, maybe strawberry jam, and that's what you got every day. Many of you, like me, would probably prefer to be number 8, maybe even number 9. Some of you might want number 1. Some of you want it dry. Some of you want it buttered. Some of you want it margarine. Some of you might want some peanut butter or some honey or other things on it. So we got to customize services. This is what it means to be a person-centered care home. Now, I thought toast was just toast. Now then I asked my daughters, what kind of toast would you want? They said they wanted avocado toast. And I thought avocado toast was just putting some avocado and layering it and smoothing it over to the one piece of toast. No, that's not good enough. You got to have avocado toast with radishes and tomatoes and arugula and beets and seeds and all those yummy things that you see there. So we got to think about customizing our services for seniors. Not all seniors want the same thing. And we got to make sure we're doing individualized care for the individual person. So doing the same thing for everybody, it might work sometimes, but none of us would want that the rest of our lives. So here's what we did. If you know anyone who has advanced dementia or someone who has some challenges in old age, they might have dysphagia. What is dysphagia? It is a condition often caused by dementia where you have a tough time swallowing. You can't swallow solid foods. In fact, you can't swallow liquids either. So we have to make a consistency. It's called ITSE's level 4. It's an international standard of the consistency of food. It's called textured modified diet. So you can eat food. Here's what we did. We found out that people had food envy. Food envy is if you and I went out for dinner and you ordered a plate of some delicious stuff and I looked at your plate and said, I want to have what you're eating. That's food envy. I should have ordered exactly what you ordered. I probably would do that if I was visiting you where you live. Now, so what we did was we said, it's not fair for people who have dysphagia, who can't swallow, to have all their food blended and look like baby food, like mush. So what we did, something pretty simple. We reconstituted it and reformed it to make it look like the actual food it is. So this picture of spaghetti meatballs, it is spaghetti meatballs. The people who eat it have dysphagia. They take their fork to it and it falls apart magically, and they can ingest it. So they no longer have food dignity. They no longer have food issues like that, food envy. And we brought them back and gave them back dignity. We all deserve dignity. And here's Krista, someone who works at KinVillage, helping giving feeding assistance to a resident, an older person who lives at KinVillage. That's our Thanksgiving turkey dinner. And it doesn't look as good as the last picture, but it sure looks more appetizing than putting a big plate of mush. Now, I want to say that it's not just in Canada where we're doing this. We're doing this in Hong Kong. Here's my friend Queenie. She lives in Hong Kong. And what does she do? She's doing a project where she goes around Hong Kong and she's delivering dim sum that's been reformed. You're going to say, Dan, that can't be the case. Yes, here's a real picture. Those are, you probably know exactly what those are called in Chinese. I can't pronounce them in Chinese, but I can tell you that if I went for dim sum in Vancouver, we have amazing dim sum here. And I went for dim sum when I was in Hong Kong in the spring. I can tell you that I looked at this when she brought this to the conference I attended with her in Bangkok recently. And these look like food and they taste like food that you expect. And this is bringing dignity back to seniors. This is innovation. This is the kind of innovation we need to see in more long-term care. But we also need to look at this whole thing around person-centeredness. When we have challenges with our memory or challenges just generally living in long-term care or perhaps living at home, how do we bring back some of the things we lost? So here we have a senior who's, as you can see, peeling an orange with a caregiver. And by the way, the caregiver is not wearing scrubs, not wearing hospital-style clothing, nor is he. And the environment around him looks like a house. Isn't that where we all would want to live? And imagine the smell right now. If we were in a big conference together and someone opened up an orange, everyone would smell it in the room. So they're having a conversation about that orange, and he's relearning the experience of peeling and enjoying an orange. He might have grown up maybe in a place with warmer temperatures where they have oranges, and he brings back memories. Maybe the first time he tasted oranges. It's a very distinctive taste and smell. So it's something we can do to really help people reconnect with food, not just being served food, but actually working for it and being part of the whole food process. When we move into a nursing home, we don't have to stop doing the things that we did before we moved in. So we all should have the right to do dishes, to prepare food if we want to, and including peeling vegetables and fruit. Now, another thing that people in long-term care miss, this sounds like innovation, but it's common sense. If you and I lived in a nursing home together and our spouses weren't there, maybe our spouses had passed away, but one thing that when you ask a nursing home resident what they miss the most, if they really talk to you and you really get to know them, they will say they miss human touch. For me, this picture is the top of the mountain. It's the top of any peak of any mountain you ever want to climb. The caregiver, Fraser, is touching the face of the resident. They're holding hands, 2 touch points, and you can see the love, the caregiving that goes in there. I want to see that everywhere I walk, everywhere I am in KinVillage, and I want to see that when I visit places where you work. I want to see the human touch, and that's what we need to see, that human connection. That might be innovation, and it's something that we need to do more of. Some other innovation. The technology is there now to really ramp up our physical environment so they never feel like a hospital. Hospitals are fine when you need them, but don't run a care home like it is a hospital. Here we have some simple murals. These are stickers that have been put on the walls, wallpaper essentially. You can see the spindles that are there with the handrail. And all we've done is we've changed that door to look like a front door and really made it look like a home to get rid of the institutional elements. There's no fluorescent tubes. The floor is different. So we should be reimagining and rethinking and challenging the status quo. And your job as innovators, embracing technology, embracing the future, is to disrupt. And I was going to say that again, to disrupt the status quo. Change needs to happen in long-term care, and you must be the agents of that change. So this is a guy who lives in long-term care. He's the same person that was peeling that orange. And what's he doing? He walks aimlessly around the care home, driving everyone crazy because he has a form of dementia that makes him wander around. So what do? Instead of him being lost all day long, we give him something to do. He's pushing a baby cart. Who doesn't want to push a baby cart? there's a doll inside there that has a little bit of artificial intelligence and talks back to him and cries and does everything except for what, there's no diaper to change. It's brilliant. So he walks around, you can see the environment around him looks like home, and there he is doing something that's a normal activity. Well, this is all about technology. I know you want to focus on gerontology, so here it is. We get excited, really, really, really excited about robots. Well, you know what? I'm not sure what's going to happen when we have robots. I'm not sure what's going to happen when they have artificial intelligence. What will that be like? I think we have a few years before we get there, but we're all enamored with this idea of what will happen when robots come in. Everyone should know they will never, ever replace the human caregivers. That won't happen. They will do some things that human caregivers do right now, but they won't replace the human connection. And we should be very mindful that we don't ever reduce our staff for that reason. We need to have human beings, and we also need to embrace technology, which we haven't done traditionally in our industry. So think about the role of robots and the role of where they can add value and to enhance what we're doing as an investment, not as a replacement. During the pandemic, if you remember, families weren't allowed to come in to visit their loved ones. So we pivoted very quickly by having those smaller computers, putting them in front of residents. And here's a woman who has advanced dementia. She has Alzheimer's disease, and she is seeing her daughter for the first time in a long time. And there's no medication that can make someone be that excited other than seeing the human connection. It's so critical that we use technology for communicating between people, especially those who are far away or who can't visit for whatever reason. If it's an outbreak, if they live in a different town, but we need to make sure that we're continuing to use technology. The same kind of expression can be used when someone's listening to music. We all have our favorite songs. I like rock and roll. If I lived in a care home, I'd want to be listening to the Beatles and Queen and the Rolling Stones and U2 all day long. So that's what I'd want to be. I want to be at that rock concert. That would keep me going forever. So think about how we can use social media, regular television, and things like that, streaming TV, to embrace older people and make sure they have access to it. Here's something, and you probably have lots of technology out there that looks like this. This is called VeriCare. I think it's designed in Asia. And that thing on the right, that device goes underneath the foot of the bed. There's two legs, if you will, in the front of the bed. And what happens is that monitors movement in the bed. And then it translates into connects with those sensors, and that measure those numbers there. And it tells how the person's sleep is, their sleep patterns. And it gives information about the biometrics, just like your smartwatch would do. It gives the biometrics to the care staff, so they know, for example, if the person sleeping in that bed has woken up and got out of bed, and maybe they can prevent a fall. Maybe they can see the sleep patterns. And if the person's had a bad night's sleep, maybe they can help by giving them less medication or more medication, depending on their night's sleep. And maybe they'll be able to predict falls and to prevent adverse events from happening. So this is a really good example of where sensors and wearables can be used in care homes and also in the community to better assist in knowing how someone's doing. So those biometrics monitoring, that really is the way of the future. Wearables and sensors, they still haven't been fully embraced and fully developed in the marketplace, but I really think that's the first piece of technology that we're going to see that's going to be universally applied, and we're all going to have that. It will be just like our smartphones, where everyone has that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about family members. This is Ken. He's my next door neighbor. That's him and his wife on their wedding day. The day that his wife, Maureen, had to go into a care home because of her advanced vascular dementia was the day that they shut down, and he was on the outside looking in of the care home. And I'm showing this picture because we have to rethink and reimagine and be innovative about families. So never again can we ever have families on the outside looking in. They must be inside, no visiting hours, be able to visit their loved one whenever they want, and be thought about being the care team. Ken provides so much assistance to his wife. He's a dentist. He brushes her teeth. He helps to feed her. He's a loving husband. And we got to make sure that family members are part of the home and there's space. We design our places so there's space for them to visit. There's a great movie. I'm sure it's available in where you are as well. It's called The Father. It's with Anthony Hopkins, who won an Academy Award for his role playing someone who has Alzheimer's disease. That's his daughter, played by Olivia Colman. This movie really is very touching and poignant, and you actually feel like you're inside his brain. You're seeing the whole movie through, you're experiencing through his viewpoint, and he will do everything possible to stay at home. So we need to also rethink, reimagine, be innovative, and use technology, gerontology, to help seniors, to help older adults live out their days, if possible, at home. So think about all those adaptations we need to add in so that it's safe to live at home. And innovation includes the flooring, the materials of the wall, the kitchen, everything possible, adaptive devices so you can lower yourself onto a toilet, you can get into your shower, you can get in and out of your bed. We need all those things at home because we're not building enough nursing homes, and some of these places none of us would want to live in. Some of them are wonderful, but we've got to make sure we have enough supports in the community so we can age in place. In Canada, this made the front page of the newspaper across Canada. It was the nursing home that I saw, and this broke my heart every day. This gentleman would show up in his motorcycle to see his mom inside, and it was heartbreaking that he was on the outside looking in. We got to fix that and make sure that never again do we separate seniors from their loved ones, from their family, by a window. We have to make sure we figure this out, and that never again during a pandemic or an outbreak are we ever stopping family members from visiting. This is the only population that was excluded from seeing their loved ones during the pandemic. We also got to rethink and reimagine the person living in care. Some people want to call them, I've heard the term inmates, believe it or not. Some people call them patients or residents. This is Paul. Paul happens to be 93. Actually, now he's 94. And I think really his age is important. However, I think of him more as being a father. He's also a builder. He's a curler. A curler is a Canadian game. You've probably seen it in the Winter Olympics. And he's also a gardener. He's such a good gardener that he organized a local service club called the Rotarians to come to KinVillage and garden. Now, what did he do? He organized the day. He told them what to do. He had all the tools for them. This is a guy who lives in a care home. What's he doing this? He's living life to the fullest. That's our mission. That's why we exist. And after we finished gardening, he took them all out for lunch in the cafeteria. We want to see and enable seniors, and he's a volunteer. So when I think of him, he does all those things. Not everyone can do that who lives in care. Not everyone has that same experience. We got to find ways of providing meaning for these people, to give them a reason to get out of bed. And if you think about plants, for example, plants, they need us to water them, to make sure they get sunlight, to fertilize them, make sure they have good soil, and we can enjoy the fruits of their labor. So we got to find reasons to get out of bed, and I can't think of a better one than gardening. Now, the social environments that we're living in, we got to, again, reimagine the nursing home. If you run a nursing home, or you know of these places that look like an institution, look at a hospital, we got to fix that. Like I was showing earlier, this is a brand new one in Boston. It's called the Leonard Florence Center. It's a greenhouse, meaning 12 people live together in one household, and they do everything they want to do when they want to do it. And there's high satisfaction ratings from the people who live there and the staff who work there. I can tell you that during the pandemic, during COVID-19, they didn't have any outbreaks. Why? Because only the family members came in, and the staff only went to that household. And there was no cross-fertilization, no going back and forth from one area to the other. They were already segregated. That's the way to go in the future, to have these small household models that look like a home, not a hospital. Now, everyone knows about the dementia village called De Hogewey in the Netherlands. The most innovative thing here in that dementia village is that she, who has advanced dementia, in the coat there, in the whiter coat, the gray hair, she's going grocery shopping with her caregiver in the black jacket. But what's really cool is that grocery cart, it's got the ingredients, the supplies for her lunch, dinner, and breakfast the next day. She lives in a very small household with 6 people. And by the way, yes, it's the Netherlands, and they do have ingredients there for pancakes. They do have those delicious Dutch cheeses. So that's a big innovation. So think about the storage room you have in these hospitals or nursing homes. Just convert them into a storefront and have the residents go buy the goods and have them bake or make their food in their local living areas. We don't need those centralized kitchens. They're a nice idea, but what if we could be at home? I can't wait the next time I'm at home for dinner. I love going home after a day of work and making dinner with my family. That's a normal thing to do. Why do we not allow seniors to do that in care homes? This is a dementia village. If you come to visit me in Vancouver, I'll take you here. And they built this dementia village. It looks like homes. It does not look like a hospital. And there's tons of outside area for them to wander around in safely. And by the way, someone might say, hey, it gets cold in Canada. Doesn't it rain a lot in Vancouver? Yeah, it does. But we all as human beings have the right to be able to complain about the weather. So when it's raining, I want to be able to go outside if I want to choose to and feel the rain, the water drop on my head. On a sunny day, I want to feel the sun on my skin. That's part of our human condition. And if you want to complain about the weather, that's also part of the human condition. We also got to see that these places are being built in our backyard. My house is on the top of that this slide, and this nursing home, this retirement community is being built in my backyard, in my neighborhood, and I'm proud of it. In fact, my dad and I went to the city hall to support the project, and we can't wait for it to open. In fact, who knows? Maybe I'll work there. Maybe my daughters will get a job there too. Maybe they'll volunteer. Maybe my parents will move there. Maybe my wife, who's a teacher, might teach a course there. So what's the harm in seniors being located in the middle of town? In fact, KinVillage, where I work, this is a slide of our town. We're right in the middle of everything going on. We're not next to the hospital. We're in the center of town, is right there. Seniors can wander around and they're part of town. They're not pushed off somewhere else away from everything going on. We've got to make sure seniors are in the middle of town, as they've done in Europe. This is around Lake Constance, around Germany and Austria and Switzerland. There's a lake there, and this is one nursing home on the right with a grass roof. Next, across that little street there is a co-op housing. The apartment building residents there, they volunteer in the care home. That crane is behind the community center for seniors. Behind there, they're building housing for young people or young adults with disabilities. And you can see it's across the street from the town center. That's where these places should be. You talk about living at home and aging in place and innovation. That guy sitting on that bench, that's going to be me one day. This is the area of Vancouver called Carswell. That's where I'm going to age in place. I grew up here as a young boy. I'm going to age there as an old adult, and I expect to spend my last days and weeks and months and years in that location. So that's what we got to do. Make sure you can age in place where you live in your community. And ultimately, this is what we're after. Our goal, your goal, my empowerment to you today, listening to this presentation, is that you create these moments where seniors are embracing aging, where you're supporting them with technology so they can have the toast they want to in their own home and enjoy life to the fullest, whether it is at home, in a place like a nursing home, in an adult day center, or whatever kind of supports they need, that they can live life to the fullest. I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to present with you today. There's my email, dlevitt@kinvillage.org. Feel free to reach out to me through that email, or if you're on LinkedIn, social media, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting things, and I'd love to connect with you and hear more about what you do and who you are. And I hope this has left you with some inspiration of how to create a better life, a better world for tomorrow for older adults. I can tell you one thing, that if you think of anything that's ever changed in the world, it started because a group of committed citizens, a group of people like yourselves, decided to change the world. And remember, you are the answer to what people are looking for. You are the reason why we're going to make that kind of change. And I'll be right behind you, cheering you on. And I have confidence in you to run up against that hill I was talking about earlier, to challenge the status quo, to disrupt the apple cart, to make sure that aging becomes our focus and that we embrace aging, that we make innovation, that we introduce technology, and that we make life better for older people. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be with you today, and I hope you found this presentation helpful. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, for your inspiring sharing about how we will aging and how to bring out the concept about positive aging in the era of technology and innovation. So, so with regard to combating ageism or how we embracing aging, what do you see the role of technology? What is the possibility of technology could brought to this paradigm shift?
I think technology has a huge role to play. First of all, I think the first thing we have to do is get past the idea that older people are not computer literate. We have to embrace computer literacy for all people. We call it digital equity. The International Day of Older Persons a few years ago wanted to see that every single older adult had access to computers, access to smartphones. And things we can do that are simple is if you know somebody who is older, like my parents, for example, they actually connect with our grandkids, with our teenage daughters on social media. They're doing all the same kind of social medias that their granddaughters are doing to connect with them. So we want to make sure that there is equity and that we're enabling that and that we're supporting that. There's this idea, this mythology that you have to be born with technology in order to understand it. That might help. Sure, there's some truth to that, but we got to make sure that all people and everyone has access to the internet, access to computers. That's the first thing we got to do. Second thing we got to do is we got to find ways of an investment and encourage innovation funds and grants for people to develop technology, digital technology for older people to address things like aging in place. As I mentioned in the presentation, these wearables, I wear a Garmin watch for running. Now I wear it for sleep, and I can tell how my REM sleep is. I can tell if I have deep sleep, light sleep, how long I sleep. It measures all my biometrics. And sure, it tells me about my runs, if I'm being productive, about my age adjusted for my fitness level. By the way, I'm a 54-year-old trapped in a 20-year-old's body, according to my fitness level. But we got to figure out how to use wearables to help people age in place and or if they're living in care. How do you use sensors? Those sensors technology. How can you do that? So I think we got to really invest, and that's just the start of it. Where there's robotics, there's AI, so all sorts of things we can do so people can be independent. And you think about the kitchens. How can we renovate our kitchens so that they're safe for people, to prevent falls, to prevent people from having a fire? So I think we really got to reshape technology. And while we're at it, we got to think about also transportation. Think about, I guess that's the last thing there is, how do we move about the communities we are? If we're no longer mobile in the same way we used to be, can't drive a car anymore, how do we help seniors get around and have specialized programs for them so that the cities we live in are in fact age-friendly?
Thank you, Dan. So you've mentioned how technology could help, all adults to live more independently, more actively, right? So, but in the other way, so what we see would be the attitudes or the skills or the cultural change needed for the social service practitioners, the caregivers or the care staff. How would they embrace the technology? What kind of skills or what kind of paradigm shift they need to go into these process?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm not sure if I can answer the question fully, but I'll do my best. Just like that picture I showed earlier in the presentation about the caregiver who was holding a hand and also touching the face of the senior in care, I think we got to figure out, how do we use technology in the same way? How do we embrace technology in a way that enables the workers to know that this is not replacing themselves? It's making their job easier. We have lots of technology in the workplace. We have lifts that we use, mechanical lifts, to help people transfer from bed into a wheelchair or from wheelchair into the toilet. We have lifts that move people throughout their room. We use different technology for different things. We have really got to embrace that. So, for example, it might seem simple, but in a care home, a lot of the cleaning can be done by robots. We see that in larger environments where you have almost a robot or technology used to clean floors. How do we take those things that really humans don't have to do, that robots can do, and then have staff spend more time one-to-one with the individual. And then also you have the technology, the nurse call systems. When someone needs help, the technology is there right now. Right. That if I lived in care and before I even needed assistance to press the button, the staff get alerted. So there's things, for example, like there's smart incontinent products. There's incontinent products that have sensors in them that will tell the caregivers, the care staff, when they've gone to the bathroom. So they can be changed right away, and they don't have to be in that soiled diaper, for example. There's devices, as I showed, that can measure sleep patterns. I think we have to think about how we can embrace that, and then also figure out how to pay for it, because that's really the biggest piece, is how to make it affordable so that we're, because essentially we got to take that money from somewhere else, but there must be ways we can generate revenue or find other sources to support the caregivers. We've all found ways of paying for our smartphones and for streaming video. I'm sure we can do the same thing for older adults.
Yeah, because what I recall, what you mentioned in the presentations, you've mentioned that the technology is an investment, right? It's not a replacement for human touch and manpower. But in the perspective of the operators, they will think about how we could make it more financially sustainable, how we make the investment on technology to make return on it. How you see or advise us how the operators could do these kinds of investment, and how could they measure the impact or the return they could bring about from these use of technology and adoption of technology?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I know there's a company in the United States called IN2L. It's Never Too Late. And what they've done is it's essentially, it started off really as a an internet source, a web server or a web browser for older people living in nursing homes. And what they found was it really took off when the reimbursement of nursing home residents for operators, you got an increased payment from the government when you did rehabilitation. And this was a good tool to do rehabilitation. So kind of, like we all remember the Wii game, where you're doing some kind of exercise while you're watching TV or watching the computer, and you can actually record that as time spent in rehabilitation. So that's one example where you can use technology. But if you're thinking of investing, putting those sensors in, putting on those wearables, really going kind of full tilt with it. If you're building something new, you got to build that into your capital cost. If you have an existing building, you got to figure a way of monetizing that. So there are some things. I'll share some secrets and trade secrets. They are sometimes the phone systems that you have, or the TV system, the internet system that you have, you can resell it, where you're buying it in bulk, and then you resell it to the people who live there. That's one way of making some money from this. Another simply is to tell your clientele, to tell your customers, the residents, the families, that this is an extra expense, and we want to do this right. And most of us paid for technology before we moved in. Why do we expect it to be paid for when we move into the care home? So that we're going to charge you extra money for these services, but it's going to improve the quality of your life and improve safety. So I think there's different ways of doing this, but at the end of the day, yes, we will be making some tough choices to find the money in order to make that kind of investment that we need to make that transformation that we all know we can make in long-term care.
Thank you, Dan. So just a last question for you. So how would you see the technology? Would it provide more choices or purposes for the older adults, just like some photos you mentioned, or how, or would you think is it vice versa? Would it limit the choices or the anything we need to pay attention when we adopt technology in terms of long-term care?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I want to go back to a study I was mentioning, kind of about the plants example. So there was a study done, I want to say it's now a half a century ago already, where these two social psychologists, last name are Langer and Roden, they went into some care homes in New England, in the United States, and they gave one floor of the residents, they gave them all a plant, and they said, you are responsible for this plant. You must water it, fertilize it, make sure it gets sunlight, make sure it grows. That's your job. Okay. The other floor just above it, and we're assuming these two groups were homogeneous, meaning they're all the same. The second floor above them, they gave them a doll, just a plain doll. They said, like a stuffed animal. They said, here's a doll for you. It's a gift. If something happens to it, if it gets dirty, you'll lose it. We'll replace it. We'll clean it. Don't worry about it. But that's yours to keep. So they gave each of those residents on both floors a present, but one of them had responsibility, the other didn't. You can guess what happened when these researchers, these social psychologists, came back a few weeks later. The floor with the doll, the stuffed animal, some of those residents had died. Some of them had worse outcomes. We call them comorbidities, meaning maybe they had fallen, maybe they had more pressure ulcers, maybe they were on more medications, more behaviors, more negative outcomes. That's because they didn't have any responsibility. We all need responsibility to flourish. And it was a choice. And then on the lower floor with the plant, all of them were still alive. All those comorbidities, none of them, they didn't have any of those because they had a reason to get out of bed, like we all have. And it was a flip, a disruption, because what happened was these residents who spent all their time being dependent on others, something was dependent on them. They had a choice. So we know that choice is good. Choice gives us, it's part of our human condition. It's something we fight for. People vote for choice. When you're going to the elections, people fight for choice, for independence. So you just think about this in the nursing home context or seniors context. So we need choice, and technology, I believe, gives us more choice. I guess you could probably show examples and argue where there are times where it narrows down and kind of constricts us, but I would argue the opposite, that it opens up doors. So if you think about it, most of us probably go on apps like YouTube or places like that, or we stream movies. We have all choices in the world. If I want to, on the drive home from my work to my home, I can listen to just about any music in the world. I don't need to wait for my favorite song to come on the radio. I can listen to a podcast. I can listen to just about anything I want. So we got to figure out how to make sure the technology is there to provide choice, to enhance quality of life, and to improve the way that we're caring for seniors. And I think technology, used in the right way, will provide that choice and enhance the care we're giving, and will make life better for everybody.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for your inspiring sharing, and nice to check with you for these on these topics. So we'll be very glad to see you again, to meet you in person in the future. So thank you for your time, and once again for your great presentations and inspiration. Thank you.
And thank you for the invitation, and I can't wait to do this again. Thank you.